Somebody should say. Where did we end in the last class? Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. I think as I recall, we were, saying something preliminary with reference to dividends. And so I was saying that it is a complex decision, and in many sense it is a long term decision, though compared to financing and investment decision, it may be taken more frequently, but the changes do not happen with that much of frequency. Rather, changes happen at a much much less frequency, and many times it continues to have the same dividend policy, and in that sense dividend decision is but when we come to this, we will start looking at this important decision of finance at that stage. But just to finish my point there, let me also show you a very interesting case. I'm sure you must have heard of the name of the company, but look at this company, which is 3M India. Okay. Now this share price of this company today at this moment is 23,944, and its face value is, as you can see my cursor, is 10 rupees. And also, since price to book value is given as 12, so if you divide this 23,944 by 12, it is 12.05. So taking a rough idea as price to book value as 12 and price as 24,000, that means the book value is about 2,000 rupees. So that's your book value. So we can deduce that information from price to book value. In fact, from the book value and the price, this price to book value has been calculated. And it's a diversified company. It has a collaboration, it has a promoter group, which is 3M, which is a multinational. But look at its dividend policy, and we find no record. Right? There is no record of corporate action. And we go, let's say, to many of the previous years, and when we go to previous years, there also we find no record. So the company is paying no dividend. Company is actually not only not paying any dividend, also it is earning a huge profit. Like in the last financial year, it had earned 132 rupees per share. So going by the ratio, it has earned about 1300%. Yes, 1300% as the profit of that year. And for this year, also, no, this year information is yet to be available. Only March 21 is available, which is going into the last financial year. So, like whether the investors are liking this company or not, one can judge it from its price, and one can even look at its last 1 year of the performance of the share on the stock market, and you find well, it has grown quite a bit after falling maybe sometime in the peak of pandemic, and then it has actually touched a peak of 30,000, but now it is somewhat on the downside. So dividend is not necessarily affecting the returns. Dividend is just one component of the return which the investor is getting. Okay, so that's something which came to my mind, and I thought I should share with you people. Let's come to what we want to discuss today. And as I mentioned in the previous class, that we want to move on to one of the major decision of the finance function. So this decision, as I mentioned, that there are three major decisions that we will be discussing in this subject on financial management. And the first decision that I want to take up is investment decision. And I explained in the previous class as to, very difficult to put which comes first and which comes later. In fact, when you're planning, there is some kind of a simultaneity between investment and financing function. And in that sense, you are debating between various projects that possibly you as a promoter group, you as a set of investor can take it up, and the financing options available. So you are virtually comparing the profits that you may get and the cost you may incur when you mobilize the money which is needed to undertake that kind of a project. So that's how you get into both the functions in some sense simultaneously while you are at the planning stage. But for simplification, we are taking up the investment function first. So in the investment function, we are basically taking long-term investment decision. So when we say long-term investment decision, that means we are committing huge resources of the organization to certain projects. So when we are committing huge resources of the organization to certain projects, that means we have different alternatives before us. And these alternatives that we have before us, supposing we do not have any alternative, that means you have got only one kind of investment. And in that case, the only question that you are trying to answer is whether that investment is profitable enough or not. But the moment you have more than one investment opportunities, your question, besides answering this question whether those investment projects are profitable enough or not, there are some additional questions that you are trying to address. And of these additional questions, one of the important question is whether you have sufficient resources to invest in those projects. And if you do not have sufficient resources to invest in those projects, that means you cannot undertake all the opportunities, all the investment opportunities which are available to you. And so in that sense, we say capital is limited. Capital is a scarce resource. And since capital is limited, capital is a scarce resource. So what do? You do some kind of budgeting. You do some kind of allocation. So the moment you realize that the capital which is available with you is scarce and you have to do an allocation function, so this allocation function has to ensure efficiency. So the efficiency criteria from a business point of view, while choosing different projects, like one may have a possibility of choosing more than one project, but there could also be situation that you have the possibility of many projects but you can choose only one. If that's a scenario where you can choose out of the multiple projects only one project, that means you are dealing with mutually exclusive projects. So if you're dealing with mutually exclusive projects, you are trying to debate as to which of these is the best. And when you're debating as to which of these is the best, that's the skill you're going to learn in this particular investment decision, which is part of your curriculum. To facilitate that learning, I have taken up an example. And this example is before you. And let me uh, change it to slide show mode. So that's the example before us. So now audience is not visible to me, and therefore when you are responding to my question, that moment will come a little while later because I have some of the initial things to say. And before I say those initial things, let me just ask you, do you make any sense of what I have put on the screen? Yes, anybody? Are you able to make sense of what I have put on the screen? Yeah, somebody can respond. I need not point out to somebody specific to respond. You can respond on your own. Let me explain. See, I am saying that we are trying to, like the moment of decision that we are having is we are trying to choose a project for investment. And when we are trying to choose a project for investment, that requires an investment into some kind of asset which involves commitment of huge resources. Now before I go on to this commitment of huge resources, let me explain what is an asset. We say asset in a financial term is nothing but a stream of cash flows, a cash outflow and a set of cash inflows. It could also be a set of cash outflows, right? And for convenience and simplification, I have used these cash flows in the three cases of example that I've put on the screen, which I've described as asset A, B, and C, as if these are flowing at time periods 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so by zero, I mean that the cash flow, if it is in the negative, so cash outflow, and if it is in the positive, then it is cash inflow. So by zero, I mean the current time, the time when you are actually taking a decision. That's the time. Now, if you are putting up a huge investment, let's say in a steel plant, or you want to run a commercial airline, the investment doesn't happen at one moment. Investment happens in a staggered scenario. So this staggering of scenario in the investment brings some kind of complexity into the cash outflow happening over a time period. Let's say something in the very first month, and little later by the end of quarter some more, and like that, the cash outflow itself would not happen at a particular moment. But for simplification, we are saying that all the investment required in a particular asset, assuming that it is happening at time zero. So if it is happening, just a second. हाँ जी सर, ठीक है, बढ़िया। अच्छा, मैं पूछता हूँ, डिटेल क्लास में हूँ। ठीक ठीक ठीक, ओके ओके। Convenience, we are saying that we have these three investment opportunities, and for comparison's sake, again, like that kind of scenario doesn't happen so easily. Supposing you are debating whether to put up a commercial airline service, or to set up a steel plant, or to set up a cement plant, or to start manufacturing automobile, cars, or a two-wheeler, you will find, well, the investment amount involved in these five projects may not be exactly same and would be different. So there is a question of difficulty in comparison. But for simplification, I'm saying that you have three alternatives of assets, and all the three alternative assets involve cash outflow of 8,000. I have not put the denomination of the currency, whether it is rupee or dollar, and I've also not written whether it is 8,000 crore or 8,000 lakhs or whatever. But I've just taken a simplified figure of 8,000, and at time zero, I'm saying all the investment that is required is happening at time zero. That would happen if you decide to invest in that project. And then over the next 4 years, there is a cash flow which is resulting from from the operation of that asset in business activity. Now, here I find it important to explain as to what is this cash flow from operations. We all come from a background on commerce, and in our earlier years, in school as well as in graduation, we have looked at the financial statements, and from the financial statements we know that this cash flow would mean that you will add some of the expenses in the profit which were non-cash expenses back to the profit to find out the cash flows. So that's how the cash flow from operation would be calculated. Also, if there is taxation involved, depending upon the tax involved, we will be taking this cash flow as net of taxes. So it's like the final information before us, that we have done all the adjustments related to non-cash items into profit as well as tax. Now, as an example, let me say, let's say this 2,500 rupees, how has it been arrived? Supposing supposing that this 2,500 rupees has involved, from this very example, from the example of asset A, let's say it involved a depreciation of 2,000 rupees. So this depreciation of 2,000 rupees would imply for a particular year, if I take the straight line, if I take the simple depreciation method or straight line method, if I put it that way. So you deduct the depreciation from this 2,500, so you get 500. Now, assuming that the tax was 50%, I'm just taking an example, that means our profits were actually 1,000 rupees. So 1,000, whatever denomination, rupee or dollar, or let's say you have further few zeros. So this 1,000 is the figure which is before tax, profit before tax. And let us say corporate tax is 50%. So if 1,000 is the income, corporate tax is 50%. That means now income is actually 500. Okay, but in this 500, you are adding back the non-cash expenses, which is 2,000. So that's how this 2,500 is being arrived. Now, this is a very important aspect, that when we are looking at the evaluation of investment projects, we focus on cash flows instead of focusing on profits. Why do we focus on cash flows? Because the timings of the cash flows are certain. Profit is something which can vary depending upon your different accounting policies as to how do you do the costing of your stocks, or as to what method of depreciation you apply. So those things will actually change the profits, but such things will not affect the cash flow from operations, and therefore we take the cash flows and we know the timings. Now these timings again, because from this information is expectedly coming from the financial statement, and this information is coming actually from the future financial statements. So this is like potential of an investment. This is not about past, this is about future. So we are talking of all the cash flows in future, from today's time zero to whatever is the time frame of that project. Because unless it is in future, there is nothing that we can decide about. If it is already past, then there is nothing that we are deciding about it. And therefore, in this future time frame, the question of certainty, reliability of information comes. And here we are making another important assumption, that the information before us is reliable, is correct. And given this kind of assumption, let us say we have got these three projects before us, where in time zero, all the three projects have 8,000 as cash outflows. And in the next 4 years, at the end of each of the 4 years, we have this information on the cash inflow, which is being depicted. Now, how many of you would take the risk of telling me which project from your understanding of this information is a better project, and what calculation you did while arriving at that decision. So you may write it in the chat box. Okay, information is simple. I am depicting again. Yes, I am expecting each one of you to respond. Okay, I've just increased the font size for better visibility. I hope my question is clear. I hope the initial background that I have given, and in the meanwhile, let me also mention, you keep thinking about what I have just asked as the question, and let me repeat the question that I've asked. Which of the three projects is better according to you, and what is the reason you assign to arrive at that decision? Yes, Gautam?
Sir, can you please explain that cash generated from operation part again?
See, if you take the financial statement, which is your profit and loss account, what does it give you as the final result? It gives you the net profit. Now, in this net profit, before you have paid the tax, so you say profit before tax. So, assuming that this profit is 1000 rupees and tax rate is flat 50%, that means your profit after tax is 500 rupees. And
Yes, sir.
in this, depreciation is 2000 rupees on a flat rate. That means you have applied straight line method. So because you have applied straight line method and your depreciation is 2000 rupees, so on this net profit after tax, which is 500 rupees, you add back the depreciation amount because it is a non-cash expenses. So you arrive at the cash flows in the first year. And like that in the 4 years, all the 4 years, for which the cash flows would be generated in case of asset A. Of course, the same applies to asset B and C as well. Right? And these are the information in future. So 1 means at the end of first year, 2 means at the end of second year, 3 means at the end of third year, and 4 means at the end of fourth year. And 0 means that you are investing today to the tune of 8,000. So these are the three alternative investment opportunities which are available to you. So which of these three opportunities is better or best, and what is the reason you assign to arrive at that decision? Still, you can ask me questions. If still there is some question in the minds of students, you ask me that specific question or questions. Yes. Gautam, am I clear? Have I answered your
Yes, sir.
question? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So tell me, क्वेश्चन इज टू एवरीबडी. गौतम का नाम तो मैंने ऐसे ही ले लिया क्योंकि कोई भी नहीं बोल रहा था. प्रज्ञा,
Yes, sir.
बताओ. क्वेश्चन क्लियर हो गया कि नहीं हुआ? संजना तुम बताओ। संजना
Yes, sir.
कुछ तो कुछ तो काम कर रहा होगा ना दिमाग की, इसमें से ये बेटर लग रहा है। देखिए एक बड़ी इसमें से सिमिलैरिटी क्या है, तीनों इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑप्शंस में सिमिलैरिटी ये है कि तीनों का कैश आउटफ्लो, ऑल द थ्री प्रोजेक्ट्स इन्वॉल्व ए कैश आउटफ्लो ऑफ 8,000 एंड all the three projects involve cash inflow of 10,000 rupees. If you look at the information, in all the three cases, cash inflow is 10,000 and cash outflow is at 8,000. But still, we cannot take up all the three projects and we want to take up the best. So, which one is best and why is my question. And it is a layman's question. It is a question of to a businessman who doesn't understand financial management nitty-gritties, the complexities of financial management. So as a lay businessman, this is the kind of decision they take, and therefore they are faced with a situation like you are faced, and so they have to take a good decision, good for them, so that their business gives you better profit. Yes, Rishika.
So I think the first one, asset A1, because the cash inflows are constant for each year.
Okay. Uh, okay. Anybody has the same or different answer?
Sir was thinking the same.
Okay. Pragya is saying that yes, she is also thinking on the same lines. So anybody else has a different answer? Prerana?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Even I think asset A is better to invest in because the cash inflows, of course, is
मतलब
easy.
आप सब मिलकर के उस गुफा में घुसते जा रहे हो जहां अंदर बैठा है शेर. Okay, not a problem. That was just a hint. Sanjana?
Yes, sir. Asset A.
Okay. Sanidhya? Let me tell you that all of you are wrong.
Sir, asset C would be a better option.
Why?
Sir, reason?
चलो इसको समझने के लिए थोड़ा सा और चेंज कर देते हैं, ठीक है? मे बी इट क्लैरिफाइज. लेट मी टेक वन मोर अपॉर्चुनिटी. Okay, that's my fourth investment opportunity that I have. Again, the total cash inflows is 10,000 and cash outflow is 8,000. So, three of you who have just answered, Rishika, Sanjana, Pragya, uh, who else? Yeah, I think these are the three who answered. Is your answer different now, or it continues to be same? Or anybody else has a different answer? Shubham, you have a different answer?
Sir, I have a different answer. Sir,
Okay, what is
asset
that?
D. Sir, asset D.
I said D. And what is
Sir,
your reason?
because the interest will be compounding and sir वो टाइम ज़्यादा टाइम फ्रेम के लिए हम पे ज़्यादा प्रॉफिट रहेगा जब शुरुआत में हमें 3,000 मिलेंगे.
तो सी में भी 3000 मिल रहे हैं शुरुआत में.
Yes, sir. C would also be a good option.
नो गुड नहीं, बेस्ट बतानी है.
Sir, best would be D only because sir D में पहले 3000 है, फिर से 3000 है, और सर उसका इंटरेस्ट कंपाउंड होएगा हमारे प्रॉफिट्स का ज्यादा टाइम के लिए.
Okay, that could be a, you know, like from a common sense, by just looking at it you are arriving at it, right? And again, I am not saying, like I have given the hint in the earlier case, that asset A, those who are saying is wrong. Let me not give a hint now whether it is wrong or right. But what about others? Can we arrive at a criteria by which we can judge all the 4 assets and come up with a very quick index, and based on that index we say, well, given this index, this is the best project. Let me move on. And that index is, supposing we want to calculate payback, period. Okay, I'm using this term. Now, what is this payback period? Payback period means as to in how much time the cash outflow would be recovered, or in how much time investment would be recovered. So we are calculating that value. So that value is what we are calling it as payback period. Now there is a question of methodology here. What is this question of methodology? The question is that we are even taking a fractional portion. So when we take a fractional portion, like for example, in the case of asset A, we know that up to 3 years we recover 7,500. So we need 500 more to be recovered. So this 500 more will be recovered in the 1/5 of the 4th year, right? Now this 1/5 of the 4th year, when we say, we again take an assumption. The assumption that we take is that we are getting consistently same profit or same cash flow over the year. It is not, varying into different months. Since it is not varying into different months, we can say the remaining 5,500 rupees that we need, that is up to 3 years, you have got a cash inflow of 7,500. You need 500 more. So this 500 more will come in the 20% of the 4th year. So in that sense, our answer for A, is 3.2. Okay. Likewise, if we calculate for other projects, that is B, C, and D, what will be that value? Can you people quickly do the calculation so that I know we are thinking on the right track? Like I've done the calculation for A, which is 3.2. Can you do the calculation for B, C, and D? And put it in the chat box. Which suggests that yes, we are able to understand the calculation which is to be done to arrive at the payback period. Yes, to begin with, for asset B, what is the payback period according to the method that I have suggested? Yes, are you able to do it? Yes.
Sir, can you please explain again the calculation for the same?
Let me do this explanation with the help of asset B now. Okay. Now
For B and C, it would be the same 3.2.
for B again, it will be 3.2, right? That's correct.
For C also, it would be the same.
For C also, in fact, I realized that with these 3 projects, I will not be able to explain the method. That's why I included this 4th project. because somehow the figures that I have written on these three projects coming out to be, giving you a same payback period. But this is also an interesting result. But what about case D? We'll come to this interesting result which we are getting in the three projects. What about fourth project, which is project B? What is the payback period we are getting? It is actually less than 3 years. One of the important factor that we are getting is that this is less than 3. Let me put it in this way. You can do the exact calculation also. If you do the exact calculation, that exact calculation would mean, which I can show here, 2 plus, now you need 2000 more, and in the third year you are getting 2200. So this fraction would be added to 2, and so this value will be 10 by 11. Okay, so how much would be 10 by 11? It will be something like very close to 2.9 something. Okay, what is the decimal value of this 10.11? If I use my calculator on my mobile,
2.909.
it's 2.909. So that's what we are getting, 2.909. Okay, so this is how we calculate the payback period in the case of 4 projects. We have assumptions that these projects are having same amount of cash flows. We also have an assumption here that there are okay. Now we'll come to that assumption. For that, I need to take another example there. We'll come to that in a while. We'll come to that, and we'll be able to complete that part also in today's class itself. So we are getting the lowest payback period in case of 4th project. Because we are getting lowest payback period in case of 4th project, so according to this method, this is the best project. Let me take one more example here, which is asset E, and let us say you are getting here minus 8,000, 3,000, 3,000, 1,200, and let us say 7,000.
Excuse me,
okay,
sir.
now if you calculate the payback period of this 4th project, you will find that this payback period of 5th project will be something which is more than 3, right? If you do the calculation, this will be P plus how much more we need? We need 800 rupees further to complete our 8,000 as requirement, divided by 7,000. Okay, that much fraction we need in the case of this 5th project. So this value, if somebody does a calculation on the calculator, what is the value that you get? You get 3.11. Okay, so that's what you are getting as the payback period for the 5th project. So let us say that we are just focusing on project D and E. Now your common sense somewhere says that project E is better. Yes, no? Your common sense tells that project E is better. But payback period says project D is giving a lower payback period. Am I right?
If you can please
Yes,
explain
sir.
the calculation. explanation again, sir.
I'm saying I have not given the explanation so far, but I'm saying your common sense tells that your project E is better. Why? Because in the 4th year it is giving you 7,000. Now, supposing I take, let's say in this case, that this is 14,800. If I write this 14,800 in case of asset D, whether my payback period will change? No. If in my asset D, in my 4th year, I write cash inflow, earlier I had written as 1800, and now I am writing in the 4th year cash inflow as 14,800. But will it change my payback period? No. Payback period will remain 2.909. So this is an important limitation that you have of this method. What is the limitation? The limitation is, like, we are already highlighting 2 important limitations in these 5 examples. But right now I'm talking of one limitation which we are able to highlight with the help of this changed information about the 4th project. Like, let me, instead of saying this as 4th project, supposing I retain that information and this changed information I write for project F. Okay, I write that for project F. Now look at D and F. In both the cases, just a second, D was 2200. Okay. Now if you look at project D and F, payback period will be same, whether it is D or it is F. The payback period of F also would be same as 2.909. I am going by the calculation which some student has provided to me. I am assuming this calculation is correct. I have not done my calculation. And I have written the formula here. And so for project D and F, your payback period is same, but you know from the information that project F is better than project D. Yes, you agree with me that project F is better because project F in the 4th year is giving a very huge amount of cash inflows given the quantum of investment. Your total quantum of investment is only 8,000, and in the 4th year it is giving you more than 8,000. Of course, it is in the 4th year, not in the 1st year, not in the 2nd year, right? So these 2 projects, D and F, giving the same payback period, but resulting into a decision which could possibly is difficult to take based on the payback period method. Likewise, look at project A and B. Now in project A and B, again you are getting the same payback period 3.2, but there is a difference. The difference is of cash. In fact, for all the 3 projects A, B and C, your payback period is same 3.2, but your cash flows are different. Now, even if you are accounting for cash flows, you still find that there could be some difference in the way cash flows are getting generated. What is that difference? The difference is the timings are different. To highlight this part of this different timings, let me say it like this. Let me say project O. Okay, asset O, because I am all through writing the word asset. Let's say asset O, and let us say the cash flows are like 0. Okay, 0, 7,500 and 2,500. Right? You look at these 4 cash inflows for asset O, which I have written in the top of the sheet, right? And you find again for project O, payback period will give you the same value, right? So project O will give you the same value, 3.2. It will not give you a different value. given the method that we are using to, understand the way we should calculate payback period, so your answer for asset O is also 3.2, but you know for sure that all the other three projects A, B, and C are better than project O, because in project O, for the first 2 years, you are not getting any cash inflows. So what is this limitation of this payback period? This limitation we would call that during the payback period, it doesn't take into account the timings of the cash inflows, or I would say timings of the cash flows. In these examples, we are focusing on cash inflows, but we are basically saying that it doesn't take into account the timings of the cash flow during the payback period. Also, like the second limitation, which I mentioned before, is that it doesn't take into account the cash flows after, we should say cash inflows in this case. It doesn't take into account cash inflows after the payback period, like it is happening in case of project D and F. So in case of project D and F, it is calculating the same payback period, 2.909, but somehow the sorry. Yeah, the payback period is different. In fact, it is actually saying that payback period is higher in case. How did I get the higher? No. Yeah, project D and E. Just a second. Yeah, in case of project D and E, the payback period is higher in case of project E, but it appears as if the project E is better because project E is generating 7,000 in the 4th year. But according to the payback period method, this is not a better project because project D is giving you a payback period of 2.909. And our decision based on payback period is always take that project as the best where the payback period is the lowest, right? So that's how these are the two important limitations of this method, and this is the first method we discussed. Why do we discuss this first method? We look at the advantage of this method. What is the advantage of this method? Anybody who hasn't understood the method? Anyone who has not understood the method?
Sir,
Yes.
if you can please explain the formula again, sir.
Formula, I am saying that the time taken to recover the cash flows, and we are also taking the fractional value, not necessarily whole value. If you take the whole value, then in case of all the 7 projects, okay, if you do not take the fractional value, then in case of all the 7 projects, the payback period is 4 years. Because unless the 4th year happen, you are not able to recover 8,000 rupees. No, except in case of project D. In case of project D, you are recovering it earlier, but leaving project D, for all the other 6 projects, leaving project except project D, your payback period is 4 years. In case of project D, your payback period is 3 years. So if we do not take into account fraction, then you will find your decision making is somewhat more roundabout, somewhat more approximate. And that is why we take into account the fractional value also, with an assumption that cash flows are consistently over the year, right? So because these are consistently over the year, so we are taking a fraction. If it is not consistent, then we need to know how much cash flow is getting generated in a particular year, in which months. So then we need to know the information, more detailed information about the generation of cash flows. But with the simplified assumption of a consistent cash flow during the year, we are saying that we can take the fractional value. Okay, so the method is that you want to find out the payback period. Of course, there is a technique given in the book as to how do we find out. You draw a table, you start accumulating value, and then when you reach to a point where accumulated value is becoming higher than the cash outflow required or cash inflow required, then for that particular year, you take the fractional value. So that's how when you look at the book, you will find, there is a tabular based method which is given, but which I've explained it orally, but you can draw a table. So when you draw a table, you start accumulating information. So when you start accumulating information, you find that you reach to a point where you have recovered, and in this particular year, you are recovering little more than the investment required. So for that year, you take the fractional value like we have done in this case. For project O, we have taken the 4th year fractional value. For project A, B, and C, we have taken the 4th year fractional value. In project D, we have taken the 3rd year fractional value. In project E, again, 4th year fractional value. And in project F, okay, there also 2.9. Yes, there also, there also it's less than 3. And therefore, we have taken the fractional value as 2.909. Okay, so the answer to the advantage is that it is easy to understand, it is easy to calculate, and it is easy to arrive at a decision. So this is how this payback method, which is the first method we take up. And let me, in the last 1 minute, let me also say that in your curriculum, we will be discussing 5 important methods. Okay, so what are these 5 methods? We will talk about it in the next classes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I'm stopping sharing, and you may take maybe 1 or 2 minutes if you have anything to ask. Anything which is not understood? Can I assume that yes, you have understood this method, and you also have a look at the book to understand it further? It is not difficult.
Okay, sir.
Right. And if you have your next classes, maybe you can leave.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.